Once again, we are privileged to continue with the journey of toxicity as we want to detoxify our hearts and our minds and the society. And we have an interesting topic coming up again, toxic children, with our able counselor, Janet Surum Kiplagat Frank, and our very lovely vicar from Belgut, all the way from Belgut, SEK, Reverend Nicholas Rotich. We continue. I'm your moderator, Vivian Kibeu. Again, Reverend Alan, our apologies, is not with us in this show today. So we continue. What is meant by the term toxic child or toxic children?
Yes, I think it's just more or less the same. A toxic child is disrespectful and I can say indisciplined, disturbing, continually disturbing child. Yes. Does it make sense?
How does
Continually
it continually
disturbing.
disturb? Give examples.
For example, you know these children, for example, whom you move them from one school to another, or from one, form two, form three, form four. You know, it is indisciplines. It is some sort of indiscipline, but it is a disturbing behavior. Yeah, consistently.
And are they not calling for attention? Because sometimes
No, it's
counselors
a cry
are
for attention, but it is toxic
okay,
to the parents.
thank you.
Yes, a toxic child. We talk about that child who is in a family and has parents, and this child is not behaving as it should,
Mhm.
and exhibiting negative behavior. You can talk about disobedient, truant, um, uh, misbehaving in whichever way we may want to call it,
Mhm.
within a family context, which means misbehaving against and going against the parents' wishes. That is a toxic child.
Interesting there, which brings me to an observation. What are the causes of toxic children? Because many a times the way our counselors say, you are called to school, your child is indisciplined, take him away, you take him away. You're called again, take him away, take him away. Or a child is just growing up very truant or very, very chaotic. And sometimes you see these children as young as 0 to 1 years. You can walk into a home and say, if this child continues like this, I don't know if their parents will be. What are some of the causes?
First of all, I must say this: toxic children are caused by toxic parents. There is no way a child comes from a family. No way a child will carry a toxic gene. It is the environment, parental the child grows up in. Before today, as we talk even about toxic children, we're not really blaming the child. We are blaming the parental practices. But again, if you look at it keenly, we cannot blame the parents. They did what they knew was best at that given time. So we talk about this knowing that this child could be a product of inadequate parenting practices, favoritism, in poor indiscipline practices, the kind of family leadership that was there, this laissez-faire, and sometimes authoritarian. It is the father who says everything, it is the mother who says everything. And by the Reverend, as you say that they're not following what the parents are saying, it's not a must that you always follow. You see, in the real sense, a child is a unique being. Is a unique being who has their life path. Us, we want children to follow how, you see, the way I'm bringing up my children is more or less how I was brought up. And you see, some of the behaviors I picked were toxic. So I pass on to my children. I want us to come to an understanding that children are unique. They are not like rubber. You twist them to any direction they want. They will always, when they become adults, they will always defy and they will choose their path. Number two, we are not living a life. Most of us, actually 95% of us humans, we are even children, we are not living a life. I'm not living a life. We are living a pattern. We are living a pattern of behaviors that we inherited, and they are very dysfunctional. Unless we come to that awareness that we are living a pattern, and then go back the journey. Which pattern am I living? Which pattern am I living? Then we can never rise above this toxicity. And our children will be toxic, and the next generation in that way. And before Reverend picks up, I think I must say that toxic children can be prevented by the parents. The parents. Be very keen that you're not transferring. You're not simply doing transference of how you are brought up. And let us shun from the thought that whatever we tell our children they must do. Whatever careers we want for them, they must go for it. Whatever schools we want for them, they must work hard. They must work hard to go to those schools. And then again, our children are not products of our education system. Like we say, my child got an A. Oh, my child is the best. How does a mere grade define this child? When they are not able to get this grade, they will become toxic. They will become toxic because sometimes it's beyond their ability. But we have been molded to know that, oh, a good child passes in school, cannot have any indiscipline case in school. They just say yes to what the parents said. You see, that's not a good child. A good child is any child. And this toxicity they manifest is simply they're trying to carve their niche.
Reverend, as
yes,
a pastor,
Yes.
from a pastoral point of view, as you pastor families, what is the cause of toxic children?
Yes. Before I answer that, I need to really interject here.
Mhm.
When we come to toxic children, we assume, actually we must act upon a presumption here that the parent is not toxic. What Janet says that we give to our children what we have, indeed that is what is true. And so if we are not toxic parents and we did our adequate parenting, because toxicity comes from inadequate parenting. And so if we gave our adequate parenting, a kind of a measured one that we can say, according to all the boxes ticked, this is the right parenting, then how did we find a toxic child? And so this toxic child came about maybe learning from a different person who is outside the family context. Yeah, may have come from outside. I've had parents who've done all, but then they found the children may not have followed the wishes and the aspirations of the parents. So your question was, as a pastor,
what is the cause of toxic
what
children?
is the cause of toxic?
Because you pastor families.
Yes, I've seen apart from one that a parent has overloved, given everything, overprotected the child. That is one. Overprotection has really spoiled the children. Yeah, even sometimes also favoritism from the parent, and so that one has been the cause. It could as well be in their families. You see, so we may not overrule the fact that some of these families are coming from another family, and so there's some kind of gene running through a family which may not be auguring well according to good behavior. And so from the pastoral point of view is that we as parents, is that sometimes we may want to handle our ways first, and how we treat our children and how we show our children our behavior, our models. We must have the role modeling so that we can have that adequate parenting, so that we may not cause toxic children.
There's a saying that says children don't do as you
As
say.
we say.
They always do as you do.
Yes.
Actually, it's very important because we have an opportunity to talk to our children. There's this interesting phrase some years back when there's a lot of killings among relationships. Then there's a phrase that began of Kababa generation, whereby you give them everything. They want what you give them everything. So these children are raised, they cannot manage relationship. If a girl walks away, they kill. If a boy walks away, there's a lot of stabbing going on. If a boy says now, I don't want you, you take a knife and do what? You kill. And it was a very worrying trend, and it is still a worrying trend that parents really play a big role when they are raising up their children, either to be good children or to be toxic children.
And maybe I can add and say we also have this thing when you counsel students, especially these teenagers, you find they talk about parents who by themselves are inadequate. Like, for example, they have poor anger management skills. There are those things that are from within. Parents who cheat, like cheating in the sense of infidelity, and sometimes even cheating about the jobs they do, the things they do, the property they own. That one affects a child. And also lying parents. If you're fond of lying, even in the nitty, like I'm going to buy you a very big whatever. You see, you think that is a child, but they grow up knowing that lying is a way of life. It's a way of covering up, and so you grow a liar. And then there's this other one of mismanagement of family resources. In as much as children are young, when they grow up, they realize they were told that, hey, this one was your father's. This one was your father's. And sometimes even the children don't know the resources that someone has. Then we have men who grow up then knowing that I'm not supposed to reveal things that I have. A man should quieten and let their things be known to themselves. So those things that we hide also bring up toxic parents. And also the behaviors, the abusive, an abusive marriage. When the couple is fighting, when they argue before the children, it registers in the mind of children as a strain of aggression. And so you'll find some of them being aggressive. And the boys are very sensitive. The boys become so by the way, that is research. The boys become so sensitive depending on how they saw their father treating their mother. So if the mother was ill-treated, I can tell you for sure, high chances are that this boy will be very aggressive. Yes.
Yes, we can agree on that and say, some of these values that we are normally talking about, be it honesty, saying the truth, not lying, trustworthiness, hardworking, values are not taught. Values are caught. You see? Yes, you see, you cannot be teaching people. They will see you and they will pick from there. So children pick and catch the values. They don't wait for you to teach them. So for me is that if we have parents who may not be, according to the standards, be parenting uprightly, then the children become actually very toxic.
Thank you. Which brings me to what are some of the symptoms children exhibit of toxicity? What are some of the symptoms we see in our children?
I would say something like indiscipline. Indiscipline in the form of maybe truancy, absenteeism, verbal abuse, physical
Bullying.
bullying. Yes, that is the word I wanted to say. Bullying. Or when a child bullies other children, of course, most people think that they're just being indisciplined, but it goes back. And then there's these children also who are dramatic. They're just dramatic. They bring where there's a lot of peace. Being self-centered as a child is also toxic. They should learn sharing, the art of
Delinquency. Yeah, and she had mentioned earlier on that you leave school, you want to change schools. Could be some of those. Stressed, depressed children, people, they are not able to play, not able to, well, they are sometimes also full of in somber mood. Yeah. Those are symptoms of someone who may be undergoing some toxic life.
And maybe there's something like these children who are over demanding. You know, all this look like indiscipline, but in the real sense, it is not. And then there's this defense mechanism again of repression. Once you see a child who's going back to the early childhood behaviors, like you see a child who was not bedwetting and then they start bedwetting. If you look at it keenly, there's toxicity that is being bred somewhere. And so you see that is toxicity, especially I know it's a condition, but it may not be accepted by other people. You may think that this child has just decided. So when you catch such behaviors, just know that this child is going to be a toxic child because the environment that they are growing up in is wanting. Sometimes it's even the teacher. It's even the teacher in class who causes that. Yeah, so look at the environment of a child. When you note such behaviors, it is not always in discipline.
Even now the caregivers will leave them with
Yes.
can induce some of this toxicity, which brings us to a short break. Follow us on our Facebook page, YouTube page, our Friday Conversation with Alan. Leave a comment, like, and also subscribe to our channel. Thank you. We continue as we want to pick up from toxic children. What are some of the effects we see in these children as they grow up? Effects. Now there is bullying, there is truancy, there is indiscipline, there is disobedience. What are some of the things we see as they grow up?
One thing again I would add on to that is drug and substance abuse. Most of the time that becomes a place of peace to them. Because I mean, there's no way a drug can talk to you, it cannot accuse you, it cannot do anything to you. So they find peace in that sort of addiction. Again, I can say that these children succumb to peer pressure. They succumb to peer pressure when they find themselves in a group, they don't know their identity. One very common thing is that they lose self-identity, and so they can succumb. Their self-esteem is very low, very, very low. And you see, for girls, it is pronounced as low self-esteem, hajiamini, you see. But for boys, it comes as passive-aggressive behavior. For girls, it comes out again as codependency. This girl who says yes to everything, this girl who cannot speak to themselves, this girl who is a people pleaser, for them, a good life is pleasing people, not going what they have said. So this is gender. There's a gender difference in the way it affects children. But for most boys, it comes out as those addictions, those bullying. Of course, there are some girls who are like that, but for boys, more of behavior. It goes to the esteem. Yes, to the emotions. Yeah.
Yes, effects. I've mentioned depression. I've also, which leads to another thing. You know, when you are stressed, yeah, depressed, and so we've seen children even committing suicide, yeah, or even killing parents, yeah, homicide. Those are effects of education. In terms of education, you may not have good education that you may want to get.
Some may drop out of
Some
school.
may drop out of school or keep on changing schools, yeah, due to delinquency, you see. Fine.
Okay, interesting. And another thing maybe we can see on effects of children now when they grow up, there's the issue of now from depression into suicide, from suicide. There are these children who cannot stand up for themselves. There are these children who isolate themselves. The issue of mistrust. They don't trust people. Everybody is bad. Then there's the issue of, we can also pick from children is the issue of we are tackling with obesity. We begin to treat illnesses that children rarely have, things like blood pressure, ulcers, and then people begin to wonder what is really affecting my child. Then there's the issue of they are so passive, they are not go-getters. You have to push them, or they cannot just wake up in the morning and say, I want to do. They are just laid back. So you find again it really affects not only the physical, it also affects the mental and also the emotional well-being of a child, and which brings to a very passive generation that you really wonder where this species come from.
And I think in the future, they in the long term now, they attract their kind of energy. Yeah, they attract the people they are. You see that someone was brought up in a very good family, an admirable family, but they get lost, married somewhere in a very opposite family. You see, so they attract their kind of energy. So they lose life chances, basically.
Yeah.
Yes.
So what are some of the available remedies to children? Available remedies that we can share on this platform that we are given to speak. What are some of the remedies to children?
Yeah. Yes. Okay, we can have a go.
Now, I think the remedies are the same, but this time round now, they are set up by the parents themselves, the adults, the caregivers. Let's teach our children to set boundaries for themselves. If a child every day comes home and tells you, oh, so-and-so, alinichapa, so-and-so, teach them to stand up for themselves. Teach them to speak up for themselves, to say, this time round, I know it's not the conventional way. Like you say that if you teach children that if they beat you, just go and tell the teacher. But sometimes I say, if they beat you, my friend, teach your child to stand up for themselves. Sometimes they could even beat them. Huh? You know, this one is my very personal opinion, because imagine you are a parent somewhere. You have not taught your child to stand up for themselves. Like me, for example, I'm busy in class teaching. My child is hurting somewhere, and they would have really done something simple, defend themselves. So I would say, let us teach children to set boundaries for themselves. Tell people how to treat them. Teach people how to treat them. Those are, and you know, they believe when we are young. It's very hard to teach an adult to set boundaries. But those small children, when you tell them, mtu asikufanyie hii, they accept. But for you, if I start telling you how to set boundaries, most probably you will not accept. Now, again, take your children through these self-care activities. Ensure that in your house, it's not only time for electronics. Let them have time to meet with nature. Take them for a walk. Tell them stories, bedtime stories, Bible stories. Read to them if they are not able to read. Or even if they are able, read to them stories that you think will build their resilience in this life. And then again, ensure that they exercise. You see, children these days have an issue, like you said, pressure, obesity, diabetes. Make sure that your children also engage in exercise. And then again, keep these children away intentionally as a parent from toxic environments. Take that lead role of ensuring that your children are not found in toxic environments, like in toxic companies. If a child keeps complaining that so-and-so told me this, so-and-so keeps telling me this, it's your role as a parent to take them aside and let them not let them not go through that when you're still alive.
Jesus in Mark chapter 10, verse 13, let the children come to me, do not stop them. And we must speak to ourselves, parents, that let us give our children the best that we can afford. Yeah? Many times is that we give our children leftovers of our resources, leftovers of time, leftovers of energy, leftovers. And so we mangle them. They become more toxic. And so today we should advise ourselves and say we need to give attention to our children. Yeah? Let us be there for them. Yes? Because we can only give them when we are there for them. And so many of us are crying now the schools should be opened so that we have these children taken away from us. We are neglecting our parental role, and giving the values that we ought to be giving at home. And so let us not mangle children. These are individuals. These are human beings. And so for us is that let us not wait for a time that we are referring people to psychiatrists or referring people to counselors. We are the people in our family context. And so we ask every one of us to emulate the model of Jesus of allowing children to come near him, and also he blesses them and wishes them well and means well for them. And so what we can do is to be ever ready to offer parental roles and duties to our children.
And when you say even ever ready, for me it's a call for parents to be very intentional.
Yes.
The current breed of children need a parent who is intentional. Don't feel bad to spend a few coins to engage a life coach if need be. Don't feel bad to spend a few coins to engage a counselor, because these children ought to be taught conflict resolution. They ought to be taught resilience, self-discipline, self-awareness, and all those life skills that may not be taught by parents. You know, us, we were not taught life skills. We paved our way.
Yes.
Okay, interesting. Another thing may be available remedies. Take time to listen to your child. Listen to the verbals and listen to the non-verbals. Pay attention every day. Don't just hurriedly leave home and come back again. It's like, umekula, umeshiba. Ask them how their day was, what was interesting, what was not interesting, the areas they succeeded, the areas they did not succeed, and keep on teaching them. And I think parents need to develop a listening heart and a listening ear to their children, and also just to be there. You know, sometimes children see parents as instructors. Umekula, umeoga, umetandika kitanda, and all those things. So just allow them to be. Let them be, just be there. Let them feel their presence without your voice. Let them feel your love. Let them feel an opportunity just to hang around mommy and daddy. Which brings me to a very last segment of this show. What is your message to parents of toxic children? I know it's not easy. Sometimes it is shying, sometimes it's painful, embarrassing. What is your message as we wrap up this show?
I would say engage a professional. Engage a professional, because the mind of a child is understood by a professional. So walk through this child with a professional, and sometimes also engage the pastors. Let this child have a spiritual bearing. Don't let this child get lost in the world. Ensure that your child has a spiritual bearing. Let them go to Sunday school. It is very important. The small lessons that they learn, the very small lessons that they learn will take them a long way. Like recently, my child told me that we were taught in the Sunday school not to let out our secrets to the enemy last Sunday. So I took that opportunity, and I knew by that I was glad, because they are learning these things that maybe as a mother I cannot tell them. Yes, so make sure your child has a spiritual bearing. A church is important. God bless you.
Yes, if you are a Christian parent, is that you need to, continue praying, much as you seek the advice of an expert who is able to maybe counsel, but also pray. Seek prayer, counseling, deliverance. Also, be intentional, as we may want to say, to listen and give attention to that toxic child. They are only children for a season, you see. Yes, tomorrow they will be parents. And so for us is that those periods when they are growing up, and ask them, when you grow up, what would you want to be? And many times is that we say in schools, even at home, when I grow up, I want to be a soldier, a pilot. And no one has ever said, when I grow up, I want to be a good parent. Yeah, because we think that parenting is not a function, it's not a role, something that we need to grow into becoming. But then we want to say, as a parent, just try as much as possible to be a good one, according to the standards that we may want to say, a good parent, and also offer opportunity for that toxic child to grow in an environment that is ready to be changed to be a good person.
Thank you. Very interesting discussion here as we come up to the end of this show. It's been wonderful to work with you in this journey of toxic siblings and toxic children. It is our prayer that God will give us the wisdom and the grace and the love that we need. For parents, it's always an honor to raise up our children in a way that when you look back, you'll be proud of yourself. It's not about resources. It's not about who you are, but it's about what you can give to your child. It's always a pleasure to have our counselor psychologist, Janet Frank, and our vicar, Reverend Nicholas Rotich, all the way from Belgut. They have been working with us in this show. It's always a pleasure to have you around. As I said before, Reverend Alan is not with us. He'll pick with us in the next coming sessions. So it's always a joy to have this conversation and to talk and to laugh, and also sometimes to differ. We thank God for this opportunity. I've been your moderator, Vivian Kibeu. See you. God bless you again and again. See you next Friday. Bye-bye.